Before we get too deep into it, though, Jim, can you just give us sort of a formal sense of a more formal than I gave, background, your history, some of the things I alluded to, and maybe the reason why you decided to jump out of one space and into the space of writing this book?
Yeah, I've been in a few spaces actually, but as you said, I started as a trailer editor out of college and worked at a trailer company, a vendor called Intralink, and did that for 9 years, and started working on a bunch of Castle Rock films. Um, and they got to know me, I got to know them. They were expanding, and I don't know if it was a wise move, but they said, "Would you like to come and be our head of marketing?" And I said, "Well, I'm a trailer editor. I know how to do that, but I don't know much about publicity and media buying and research and distribution and all the other things." And they said, "Don't worry about that. We want you for your trailer editing. You could learn the rest." And that's the kind of guys they were. They were an incredible group at Castle Rock, which was led by Alan Horn, who's arguably one of the greatest studio heads of all time. And of course, Rob Reiner was a partner, and a man named Martin Schaefer was my boss, and he was the head of the film division. Um, so I worked there for 10 years, which was great, and did a lot of independent films, which I'm sure some of your listeners um, will be interested in. I really got a lot of experience marketing lower budget platform releases, Richard Linklater, Christopher Guest, um,
I
filmmakers
love
like that.
Christopher Guest.
Yeah, those films were a lot of fun to work on. And then I went over to the big boys at Warner Brothers. Castle Rock was purchased by Ted Turner, who was then eaten by Time Warner,
Hmm.
and
Delicious.
consequently, it made perfect sense. And so I went over to a major studio, Warner Brothers, which at the time really was the number one studio in the world. Disney, I think, has since passed that studio, but that's okay. And had a long, long run there, working on bigger budgeted films, um, wider releases, Warner Brothers movies, the Harry Potter franchise. I worked on almost all of those films, creating the ad campaigns for those. Um, and then I kind of, I had a little run in with the new head of marketing after 11 years at Warner Brothers, and I left the studio on my own. It's very odd for people to leave a studio job because they're pretty cool. Um, but I was, that was about 30 years into my career, so maybe I was running out of gas. I don't know. And just left and had no plans, but ended up getting a job offer from Sony Screen Gems, which was a genre label
Hmm.
um,
That's right.
out of Sony.
Yep.
Columbia's their major tentpole movie distribution arm, and Screen Gems was smaller, and it was fun for a while until it wasn't. We had a lot of success, but as it happens in any business, whether it's Hollywood or not, I had a run in with the head of the studio, who was a brilliant guy, made really good films that did well. Let me change that. He made films that did well. I think they were good. They weren't great
Right.
films. There were some good ones, but the odd thing was, in the 18 months I was there, um, uh, we had almost all success, and then I got fired. And to this day, I don't know why. Which was, one of the inspirations to write the book. The first chapter of opening weekend is me getting fired by Jeff Blake, the head of Sony. So, which I call a cold open, and it was definitely cold. And
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
um,
Cold closure, more like it.
yeah, but it was a blessing in the end. I ended up uh, doing my own thing. I went back to trailer editing, my first love, still a great love of mine. I just think it's a blast cutting movie trailers, and did that for a couple years until a friend of mine said, "I'm leaving Chapman University, the Dodge College of Film and Media Arts." Her name is Dawn Taubin. She was actually my former boss at Warner Brothers, and
Mm.
she went to take a job at DreamWorks. and said, "Would you be interested in teaching?" And I said, "Absolutely. It's something I always thought would be my last act." Um, and I've been teaching at Chapman University for 15 years now.
Wow.
Where is Chapman?
Chapman's in Orange, California,
Yeah, Orange County.
part of Orange County.
Okay, yeah.
Ironically, about 3 miles from where I grew up in Anaheim.
Nice.
So that was kind of a nice circle of life moment for me. But absolutely enjoyed teaching. Um, but had a sabbatical at one point, and I got tenure pretty early on, and I said, I'm going to take advantage of this sabbatical thing. What do I have to do? And I thought I'll write a book, and a lot of my students had encouraged it. They enjoyed the stories of my career, and wish I would tell more in class. I felt like you need to learn more than gossip and dissing stories. You need to learn a little bit about how to market a film. But I took their advice and the advice of other friends in the business, and lo and behold, here it is, three years later after I started, and I have a book that basically is a hybrid of a memoir about my experiences of being kind of a schmuck from Anaheim who got into Hollywood and didn't know anybody. And, there was, my parents were horrified that I went into the movie business because they didn't think I could make a go of it.
So were Michael Ovitz's parents.
Maybe they were right. I'm sorry, Chris.
So were Michael Ovitz's parents. Michael Ovitz, his parents were also horrified.
I remember him.
Turned out okay.
Yeah. So anyway, the book exists now, and it's I'm very proud of it. And as I said, it's a part hybrid. It's a hybrid kind of concept of, it's a memoir about stories, but it's also a case study of a lot of films I worked on. I think there's probably 80 films in there of every stripe. From documentaries even to animation and independent films and franchise movies, and just you name it, it's in there, every kind of genre. So that's one reason I was encouraged to write it too, is I think every film is like a fingerprint. It requires a different marketing message, and I found that from the very first time I started cutting a trailer. I found that really exciting, to see if I could make a difference, to see if I can coerce, persuade, cheat, lie, whatever you want to use, to get people to buy a movie ticket on Friday night.
Well, Jim, you're a good writer.
That's a long-winded introduction to myself. I'm sorry, I kind of got carried away.
No, it was great.
That was perfect, man, because it tells us, it gives our audience an understanding of who you are and why you're here with us. Right. I think that's very important.